They don't have to hear it. They don't have to see it. They don't have to understand that these are human beings. Do you get it yet?
One thing that struck me about Jon Stewart and the soldiers who served, many that became victims of toxic burn pits, was the following theme.
I'm used to the lies. I'm used to the hypocrisy. I'm used to the cowardice. I've been here a long time. Senate's where accountability goes to die. These people don't care. They're never losing their jobs. They're never losing their health care. I'm used to all of it, but I am not used to the cruelty.
How the powerful are simply not held accountable in this country. In sports, this story broke.
Questions about a possible link between artificial grass made by Monsanto and brain cancer. This was discovered by a Philadelphia Inquirer investigation. The reporter looked into the deaths of 6 former baseball players for the Philadelphia Phillies, all of whom died of the same cancer at 3 times the average rate of men who did not work on that Astroturf.
That's right, you heard correctly. 6 former Phillies players have died of brain cancer. It is completely abnormal.
So last year, David West, who was a former pitcher for the Phillies, became the 6th former member of the team to die from brain cancer.
One of the reporters who broke the story, David Gambacorta.
We were able to track down pieces of the Astroturf that covered the field at Veterans Stadium in the late 1970s and early 80s, and we had them tested by 2 different labs. One of the labs found 16 different types of PFAS, which are another name for forever chemicals.
Those 6 men who died are Ken Brett, Tug McGraw, Johnny Oates, John Vukovic, Darren Dalton, and most recently, David West.
One thing we found with the vet and the Phillies is that during the summer games, the turf would sometimes heat up to 165 degrees. And some of the experts that we've consulted with explained that that would sort of allow some of the toxins in the turf to release and become airborne. So that's one possible mode of transmission that we considered.
It's a huge story in sports of the players being the sacrificial lambs, the cost-cutting measures, and the tragedy playing out years later. The Phillies used the turf from 1977 to 2001. The Philly Inquirer's investigative reporters tracked down original pieces of the Astroturf that were sold off years prior and purchased them off eBay to conduct the tests.
It's just, it's devastating. It's the only word for it.
Former Philly Larry Anderson. To reiterate, and we are going to drive this point home in this piece, the rate of brain cancer among Phillies who played at the vet between 71 and 03 is about 3 times the average rate among adult men.
First of all, it's a cluster and it needs to be examined. The amount of incidence of deadly brain cancer, about 3 out of 100,000. This is 3 to 4 times that or more.
In addition, the samples from 2 separate labs found the following: 16 types of dangerous chemicals in the turf, referred to as forever chemicals because they don't break down and can last in the human body for years.
Larry Boa, for example, he played with a lot of these guys or coached with them, and for him, I got to believe it's like, is he next? Is he going to be next, or is somebody going to be next? You don't know, and it's just so hard that there's no way to put anything together.
You heard Gambacorta talk about PFAS. So what exactly are they? Per the EPA, current scientific research suggests that exposure to high levels of certain PFAS may lead to adverse health outcomes. The health effects via peer-reviewed scientific studies are the following: decreased fertility or high blood pressure in women, developmental delays in children, increased risk of cancer, reduced ability of the body's immune system to fight infections, natural hormone interference, increased cholesterol levels, and unfortunately more.
Philadelphia still has quite a few, or at least a handful of turf fields in some of the neighborhoods in the city, and are looking at actually adding some new ones to a city park. But I think, simultaneously there's becoming, I think, an increasing amount of awareness around these chemicals and the fact that they are linked to a large number of very real human health risks.
University of Notre Dame professor of chemistry and biochemistry, Graham Peasley, who has dedicated years to studying PFAS, told the Philly Inquirer, once PFAS get into a person's blood, they circulate through all the organs.
After a 4-year battle with brain cancer, former Phillies catcher Darren Daulton has died.
After Dalton's death, Larry Boa, a member of the Phillies for over 2 decades, said, I know cancer is a big illness in our society, but to have that many Phillies get brain cancer, I'm not trying to blame anybody. It's just sort of strange that can happen to one team playing at the vet. If we bring back the picture of the turf that the Inquirer snapped and posted on their website, this was made by a company named Monsanto. Monsanto is a company with quite a history, to say the least. They manufactured Agent Orange, the chemical used by the United States military during the war in Vietnam. Essentially, they were a wartime contractor. When litigation was brought forth against Monsanto, U.S. courts determined wartime contractors, like Monsanto, who produced Agent Orange for the government, are not responsible for damage claims associated with the chemistry. Then, in the year 2018, this happened.
This case was historic.
Friday, a jury in San Francisco found biochemical giant Monsanto liable for former school groundskeeper Dwayne Johnson's cancer. Johnson says constant use of the household product Roundup led to his diagnosis of terminal non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Doctors have given him just months to live. The jury awarding $289 million in damages.
If you know you're going to die, you might as well not die in vain. You might as well say to yourself, well, let's put this out here, what happened to me.
Johnson's lawsuit is the first of hundreds against Monsanto, alleging it knew the weed killer's link to cancer and failed to notify the public. In 2015, the World Health Organization classified the chemical glyphosate, an active ingredient in Roundup, as, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans.
That same year, Bayer acquired Monsanto for $63 billion. Critics have said it is one of the worst deals they have seen, likely due to the number of cases brought against Monsanto, of which there are many. They have paid out approximately $11 billion because of litigation. 4 years later, another case against Roundup was brought by 72-year-old Mike Langford, who, like Dwayne Johnson, was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. According to the attorney that you saw in the Today piece, whose name is Brent Weisner, he represented Mr. Johnson and gave his legal team the green light to publish internal memos from Monsanto. The company was not only aware that independent scientific studies had found that its blockbuster weed killer, Roundup, and the primary ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, were probably carcinogenic and harmful to human health, but the company had also tried to bury the findings. Monsanto was also the producer of the turf used at the vet, where now 6 Phillies have died from brain cancer. As the Inquirer notes, those who represent the turf industry have said that all of their products are completely safe. The team also claimed they consulted with experts on brain cancer who denied the link.